We're restructuring around fresh talent, Blake. You're out. My name is Blake Morrison. I'm 44 years old. Tyler Brennan had just fired the man who built $15.7 million of Meridian Financial's $35 million annual revenue in Phoenix, Arizona. He had no idea what he'd just unleashed. I packed 8 years into a single cardboard box on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 at 3:47 p.m. Family photos from Connor's Little League Championship, Lily's handmade ceramic mug from 7th grade art class, and a folder of client contact information I kept separate from the company database. Just habit, really. Michelle Chen walked by from her workstation. She'd been my executive assistant for 6 years before Tyler reassigned her 3 months ago. Her expression was genuinely confused. Need help with that? Are you changing offices? Something like that, I said. Didn't want to make a scene. In the elevator down from the 18th floor, I stood next to Harrison Wade, our CEO. He nodded without really seeing me, too focused on his iPhone, probably reviewing the quarterly projections. He had no idea what Tyler had just done or what it would mean for those numbers. But he would find out by Thursday's board meeting. I drove home on I-10 to Scottsdale in complete silence. No calls, no radio, just the desert landscape and my own thoughts. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the driveway at 4:47 p.m. Lucas Grayson, CEO of Grayson Logistics. He'd texted about our dinner reservation Friday at Fleming's to discuss their annual contract renewal worth $3.4 million. He didn't know yet. Nobody did. If you like stories about workplace betrayal and how real expertise can beat greed and corporate stupidity, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel right now. Every day there are completely new stories, each one more intense than the last. The house was empty. Sarah was in Denver for 2 weeks helping her sister Lisa with a difficult newborn. Probably for the best. I needed quiet to think this through properly. On the kitchen counter sat a photo from our Yellowstone trip last summer, the one we almost canceled because Derek Martinez's contract needed emergency revisions on a Sunday morning. I'd chosen work then, wrong choice. I poured 2 fingers of Maker's Mark and looked out at the desert mountains turning pink in the sunset. 8 years of 68-hour weeks, missing Connor's championship basketball game in March, Lily's piano recital just 2 weeks ago where she played Chopin. 8 years of building something I thought was mine, only to discover it belonged to someone else's strategic plan. Let me back up and explain how I got here. I joined Meridian when it was still called Southwest Capital Services, before the rebranding and the fancy 18th floor downtown Phoenix office overlooking Chase Field. Harrison hired me himself on March 15, 2019, straight from Pinnacle Financial, where I'd been hitting 127% of target for 3 years but getting passed over for promotion every review cycle. I need someone who knows the Arizona market, Harrison had said during our interview. Someone clients trust. Someone who can grow with us. And for the first 4 years, he was right to trust me. I built our client base systematically from small regional businesses to major accounts. Extended contracts from 1-year terms to 3 and 5 years by proving consistent value. Brought in Phoenix Manufacturing $850,000 annually when they left our biggest competitor in September 2020. Added Grayson Logistics in February 2021 when nobody thought we had a chance against Wells Fargo. Started that relationship at $1.8 million, grew it to $3.4 million annually. Sarah used to joke that I was married to my clients instead of her. Thursday dinner with the Martinez family again? She'd ask every month, already knowing the answer. Connor's got a game at 7. The kids got used to me missing their events. Dad's working became their normal explanation to friends and teachers. I promised them it would be worth it someday. That someday never came. 3 promotions, 2 office expansions, and 1 recession later, Meridian had grown from a $6.2 million operation to a $35 million company with 47 employees. My accounts were responsible for exactly $15.7 million of that revenue I knew because I tracked every contract renewal personally in a private spreadsheet. Phoenix Manufacturing, $850K. Grayson Logistics, $3.4M. Summit Properties, $2.8M. Verde Energy, $1.9M. Desert Holdings, $1.3M. Copper Ridge Industries, $2.1M. Plus 8 smaller accounts totaling $3.3. Not that anyone calculated the exact percentage until Tyler arrived 6 months and 2 weeks ago. Tyler Brennan showed up on June 3, 2023 as our new VP of Sales with a resume from 3 different tech startups and an MBA from Northwestern. Custom Armani suits, buzzwords about disrupting traditional financial services models. And in 6 months, he'd never once joined me on a client call. 3 weeks and 4 days after starting, he implemented a new commission structure that cut my earnings by 28%. Said it would incentivize new business acquisition over account maintenance. That should have been my first warning. but I trusted Harrison's judgment. The signs were obvious once I looked back with clear eyes. Week 2 of July, my corner office desk got moved to a cubicle during office renovations that somehow didn't affect anyone else's workspace. July 29th, my name disappeared from the weekly pipeline meeting invites without explanation. August 15th, Michelle was reassigned to Tyler with a memo about optimizing administrative resources. September 3rd, travel requests required additional approval from Tyler personally, adding 3 days to every client visit. October onward, my expense reports came back with questions about every lunch receipt, every client dinner, every hotel stay above the Marriott Courtyard level. The first real confrontation came during our Q3 review on October 12th, exactly 3 months and 9 days after Tyler took over sales operations. He'd prepared a PowerPoint presentation focused entirely on my performance. "Your client acquisition rate has completely flatlined," Tyler said, clicking to a chart showing I'd only added Desert Solar $480,000 annually that quarter. "Meanwhile, new business development across the industry is up 23%. Because I'm focused on expanding existing relationships," I explained calmly. "The Grayson contract just increased from $1.8 million to $3.4 million when they expanded into Nevada. Summit Properties renewed early at $2.8 million instead of their previous $2.1 million. Those increases represent $2.3 million in additional revenue. The future is in new business acquisition," Tyler said, clicking to his next slide titled Hunter versus Farmer Mentality. "We need hunters who bring in fresh accounts, not farmers tending the same clients year after year." 2 weeks after that meeting, Michelle was cleaning out her desk. "I'm sorry, Blake," she whispered as she passed my cubicle with a cardboard box. "Tyler said I was too attached to old processes and needed to embrace new methodologies." I helped her carry her things to the parking garage. 6 years of working together, and she was gone because Tyler wanted his own people in place. On November 15th, Tyler hired Alicia Santos. 27 years old, MBA from ASU, came from some fintech startup called Next Gen Capital that had folded after 18 months. During her second week, she was assigned to join me on my November 28th call with Lucas Grayson. No explanation, no proper introduction from Tyler. Just an email at 4:30 p.m. the day before. "Alicia will be shadowing client interactions to learn our processes and relationship management techniques." The team's call with Lucas was scheduled for 10 a.m. to discuss Q4 performance and 2024 planning. I introduced Alicia as a colleague learning our logistics clients' needs. She spent the 40-minute call taking notes but asking questions that revealed she didn't understand basic supply chain financing. Lucas noticed immediately. After we hung up, he texted me at 3:47 p.m. "Who's the new MBA? You training your replacement?" She asked what LTL freight meant. I laughed it off over text. "Just expanding the team, bringing in fresh talent. Nothing to worry about." But driving home on Loop 101 that evening, I felt something shift in my gut. The kind of certainty that comes from 8 years of reading boardrooms, conference calls, and client micro-expressions. Something wasn't right. The timeline was too deliberate, the changes too systematic. I should have trusted that feeling sooner. Tuesday, December 12th, exactly 6 months and 9 days after Tyler's arrival, I was terminated at 3:30 p.m. in Conference Room B on the 18th floor. The same room where I'd signed my promotion to Senior Account Director 3 years earlier. "We're restructuring around fresh talent, Blake." "You're out," Tyler had said, sliding the termination paperwork across the polished conference table. "This decision comes from the board level. Nothing personal." I read through the documents calmly. Termination without cause effective immediately. 2 weeks severance plus accumulated vacation. Standard confidentiality agreements. I signed where indicated, thanked Tyler for the opportunity, and walked out without argument. Now I sat in my empty kitchen, cardboard box on the counter, trying to process 8 years of my professional life reduced to personal items in a folder of client contacts I'd maintained separately from company records. I opened my laptop and pulled up my employment agreement, specifically Section 14.3 regarding post-employment restrictions. The non-compete clause was there, but it had specific limitations under Arizona law. 1-year duration and only applicable under voluntary resignation or termination for cause. I'd been terminated without cause. Per Arizona revised statutes POR 23-494, there was no legal barrier to competing with a former employer under wrongful termination circumstances. My phone buzzed at 5:23 p.m. Lucas again. Fleming's confirmed for Friday 7 p.m. Looking forward to discussing the Grayson renewal. The $3.4 million commitment depends on maintaining our current service level and personal attention. I stared at that message for several minutes. Lucas represented $3.4 million in annual business from Meridian. His company had been with me for 6 years, total 3 at Pinnacle Financial before I moved to Meridian. 3 here. Almost a decade of trust built on 97% on-time delivery, 24/7 availability, and never missing a quarterly review. And he wasn't alone. Derek Martinez at Summit Properties, $2.8 million annually, 4-year relationship built from their initial $900K account. Patricia Wells at Verde Energy, $1.9 million, 3-year relationship that started when she was a CFO at a smaller renewable company. Combined with Lucas and 4 smaller long-term accounts, they represented exactly $8.87 million in contracts, all with renewal dates between December 20th and January 31st. All of them dealt exclusively through me, had my personal cell number, knew my family situation. None had ever worked directly with Meridian's corporate team or Tyler's process optimization approach. I made a decision that would reshape everything. I wouldn't call anyone that night. Wouldn't send angry emails or make threats. I'd sleep on it, wake up clear-headed, and then make exactly 3 phone calls Wednesday morning. Not to complain or vent, but to inform my top 3 clients that I was no longer with Meridian, effective December 12th, 3:30 p.m. The rest would happen on its own. Wednesday morning, December 13th, I made my first call at exactly 8:30 a.m. from my home office. Lucas, this is Blake. I'm no longer with Meridian as of yesterday, 3:30 p.m. Wanted you to hear it from me directly before anyone else contacts you. His response was immediate and concerned. What happened? Some kind of disagreement? Who's handling our account now? Tyler Brennan will probably reach out today or tomorrow. Maybe Alicia Santos, the MBA from our November 28th meeting. A long pause. I could hear him typing, probably pulling up our account details. The woman who didn't know our seasonal logistics requirements? Blake, she asked what LTL freight meant and whether we handled our own warehousing. That's basic information. That's all I can tell you about the transition. The rest is your decision as Grayson's CEO. Call 2 at 9:15 a.m. Derek Martinez at Summit Properties. Similar conversation, similar concern. His immediate worry, who knows about our Q1 expansion into Tucson? The $847,000 build-out timeline and the regulatory requirements for the Pima County project. You'll need to brief whoever Tyler assigns to your account, I said. All that information is in Meridian's files. Call 3 at 10 a.m. Patricia Wells at Verde Energy. This is Sudden Blake. What's the transition plan for our renewable certificates compliance? The Q4 reporting is due January 15th, and we've got the Phoenix municipal contract renewal. There isn't one. I was terminated at 3:30 p.m. yesterday with immediate effect. Without transition? For a $1.9 million account with complex regulatory requirements? That's not professional client management. By noon Wednesday, my personal iPhone was buzzing every 15 minutes. Word travels fast in Arizona's financial services community, smaller than most people realize. Other clients had heard through various channels. Phoenix Manufacturing's CFO called. Desert Holdings' CEO left a voicemail. Even smaller accounts, $200,000 and $300,000 annual contracts calling to understand what happened and what it meant for their service. I let most calls go to voicemail but listened to every message. The pattern was clear. Confusion, concern, and questions about continuity that nobody at Meridian could answer. At 2 p.m., I drove downtown to the Wells Fargo Center to meet with Lawrence Chen, senior partner at Chen & Associates Employment Law. I'd helped his daughter Jennifer secure a $180,000 SBA loan for her Vietnamese restaurant Saigon Kitchen in 2021. He owed me a favor and had agreed to review my situation pro bono. They can't prevent you from working under Arizona employment law, Lawrence confirmed after reviewing my termination documents for 37 minutes and checking relevant statutes. Section 23494 specifically protects wrongfully terminated employees from non-compete enforcement. But they'll try to intimidate your clients from following you. Prepare for that. What kind of intimidation? I asked. Confidentiality violation accusations. Tortious interference claims. They'll threaten legal action they can't win, hoping to scare clients into staying put. Standard corporate intimidation tactics. By 4 p.m., as Lawrence had predicted, Meridian's legal department had emailed me a formal reminder about ongoing confidentiality obligations per Section 12.1 of your employment agreement and Arizona trade secret statutes. By 5 p.m., Tyler had texted from his personal number. Let's discuss your exit package. Board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. There might be room for substantial consulting compensation. Too late for negotiations. By 5:30 p.m., my phone was ringing with news that would change everything. Lucas had just finished a 43-minute call with Harrison Wade and Tyler Brennan. They'd promised seamless continuity, assured him that Alicia would handle everything personally with Tyler's direct oversight. Then they offered a 17% discount on renewal from $3.4 million down to $2.8 million to demonstrate Meridian's commitment to the relationship. What did you tell them? I asked. That I'd consider the offer carefully, Lucas said. Blake, I've already sent formal notice terminating our contract effective January 15th, citing material changes in relationship management per Section 8.3 of our service agreement. The discount actually made it worse, told me they think price matters more than service quality. Derek Martinez called at 6:47 p.m. Same conversation with Meridian, same discount approach, same result. They offered 15% off if we'd commit to 2 years instead of 1. Told them we'd think about it, but I've already sent termination notice. Price wasn't the issue. Patricia Wells called at 7:23 p.m. 3 for 3. They sent that young woman to explain how she'd handle our renewable energy compliance. She didn't know the difference between RECs and SARECs. I thanked them politely and terminated our contract an hour later. That evening, I sat in my kitchen and calculated the immediate damage. 3.4 m, 2.8 m, is 1.9 m equals $8.1 million in definite losses for Meridian. But Lucas had mentioned something else during our call that suggested the cascade was just beginning. Derek and Patricia are also sending termination notices. We talked after Meridian called us. Seems like they gave the same script to all three of us. The discount offer, the promise of improved service, the assurance that you were being upgraded to corporate-level attention. Thursday morning, December 14th, 6 companies from my portfolio had sent formal termination notices to Meridian. Michelle texted me from her personal phone at 11:37 a.m. Complete chaos here. Tyler blaming you for client tampering, saying you violated non-compete. Harrison asking why nobody saw this coming. Emergency board meeting called for 2 p.m. today. The total loss was $887 million in annual contracts, more than a quarter of Meridian's entire revenue base. And it was only day 2. My phone rang at 2:17 p.m. Friday, December 15th. A number I didn't recognize, 485559847. Blake Morrison? Speaking. Richard Sterling here, Sterling & Associates. I hear you're available, and several of our mutual contacts speak very highly of your work. Lucas Grayson specifically recommended I call you immediately. I was listening intently now. Senior VP position, $185,000 base plus uncapped commission, full autonomy over your client relationships, and equity partnership track after 12 months. We're a boutique firm not trying to be the biggest, just the best. When would you want to start? Monday morning, I said without hesitation. I accepted on the spot. Not out of desperation or financial pressure, but because it was exactly what I wanted. Respect, autonomy, and recognition of the value I brought. Sterling & Associates had been around for 12 years, built their reputation on relationship-based service rather than transaction volume or corporate process optimization. That afternoon at 4:23 p.m., Tyler texted again. Board-approved comprehensive retention package. Full salary, $147,000 for 8 months plus 2,500 stock options vesting immediately. Just help us transition your accounts to Alicia and our new corporate service model. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. They'd had 8 years to value what I'd built. Now they were scrambling to put a price on it after watching $8.87 million in annual revenue walk out the door in 3 days. Too little, far too late. 2 weeks into my new role at Sterling & Associates, on Tuesday, December 28th at 3:17 p.m., Michelle called me from her personal cell phone. She was whispering, clearly trying not to be overheard. Blake, you need to know what really happened. I'm still doing executive floor cleanup, filing Harrison's papers, organizing board meeting minutes. I've been seeing documents, hearing conference calls. Can you meet me at Copper Star Coffee on Camelback? This isn't safe to discuss over the phone. I sat in Sterling's new corner office, 22nd floor, with views of Camelback Mountain, larger than anything I'd had at Meridian, and listened as 8 years of history reshuffled into a much clearer, more sinister picture. They were planning to sell the firm, Michelle explained, sliding a manila folder across the coffee shop table. Apollo Strategic Capital made an acquisition offer on September 18th, exactly 3 months and 6 days before they fired you. I printed these from Harrison's email before I lost access to the executive folders. She showed me printouts of email threads between Harrison Wade and someone named Marcus Chen, Director of Acquisitions at Apollo Strategic Capital. The initial offer was detailed, $47.3 million for full acquisition, with specific conditions that made my stomach turn. Look at condition number 4, Michelle said, pointing to a highlighted paragraph. Apollo Strategic requires integration of existing major client relationships with Apollo's existing portfolio management infrastructure. Seller must transition key account relationships to Apollo-designated relationship managers prior to closing. Relationship-dependent revenue streams represent unacceptable acquisition risk. The pieces clicked into place like a financial audit finally balancing after months of discrepancies. Tyler hadn't been hired to grow sales, improve performance, or implement new methodologies. He'd been brought in to systematically detach major accounts from me, making them company assets rather than personal relationships tied to a single executive. My termination wasn't about my performance or attitude. It was preparation for Apollo's acquisition requirements. "How do you know all this?" I asked. "I've been Harrison's administrative overflow since November when his regular assistant got sick. I process his calendar, file his emails, transcribe his recorded meeting notes. Yesterday I saw the final communication from Apollo." She pulled out another printout, dated December 20th, 2023, 8 days after my termination. "Given the significant client defection following the termination of Blake Morrison, Apollo Strategic is withdrawing our acquisition offer. The relationship-dependent nature of Meridian's revenue base represents an unacceptable risk factor for our investment model. We require asset-based revenue streams, not personality-dependent client relationships." Apollo had walked away. Meridian's $47.3 million payday was dead because of 3 phone calls I'd made on December 13th. After we finished at the coffee shop, I drove home and made calls I'd been postponing. I needed to understand the full scope of Apollo's due diligence on my clients. "Lucas, I need to ask you something specific about the last 4 months. Did Meridian try to introduce you to anyone from Apollo Strategic Capital?" A pause. "How did you know about Thomas?" "Oh, Thomas? Thomas Reed. He came to our October quarterly business review at our Phoenix offices. Harrison introduced him as a strategic industry advisor, looking at Southwest logistics trends. Asked detailed questions about our 5-year growth projections, our relationship management preferences, what we valued most in a financial services partner." My stomach tightened as the pattern became clear. "What kind of specific questions?" "Whether we'd be comfortable working with multiple account managers instead of just one primary contact. How we'd react to streamlined corporate processes versus personalized service. Thomas said it was market research for improving client experience across the industry, but his questions were oddly specific to our account structure." I called Derek Martinez next. Same story, different tactical approach. Thomas Reed had attended Summit Properties' September client appreciation dinner at the Arizona Biltmore. "Seemed to know a lot about our business before he walked in," Derek said. "Asked whether we'd ever consider working with a larger, more institutionalized financial services provider. Wanted to know how we made decisions about changing service providers." Patricia Wells at Verde Energy. Thomas had joined their August renewable energy compliance consultation, supposedly learning the sector to help Meridian better serve energy clients. But most of his questions were about our account management preferences and internal decision-making processes. How much autonomy I had, who else was involved in vendor selection, what would trigger us to change providers. The pattern was undeniable. For 4 months, from August through November 2023, Apollo Strategic had been conducting due diligence on my clients. Not market research or industry analysis. Relationship assessment and transition feasibility studies. They were determining which accounts could be transferred to their own institutional account managers post-acquisition and which ones were too dependent on personal relationships with me. I was the obstacle they couldn't solve with corporate process optimization, so Tyler removed me from the equation. 3 weeks after joining Sterling, on January 18th, 2024, I received an engraved invitation to speak at the Southwest Financial Services Conference at the Four Seasons Scottsdale. The panel topic, Building Client Loyalty in the Digital Age. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew my story. I accepted the invitation, not for ego or public vindication, but because I knew exactly who would be in that audience. Industry peers, potential clients, and most importantly, Meridian's remaining leadership team. Harrison never missed this conference, used it for networking and business development. Tyler would probably be there too, if he still had a job. Sterling had given me resources Meridian never offered. 2 dedicated analysts, Jennifer Park and Michael Rodriguez, plus marketing support and, most crucially, equity partnership opportunities. Every client I brought in wasn't just commission income. It was building something I partially owned. I spent 3 weeks preparing for the conference presentation, not with flashy slides or rehearsed anecdotes, but with hard data. Working evenings with Jennifer and Michael, I compiled detailed performance metrics for every client who had followed me from Meridian to Sterling. The results were undeniable and devastating for Meridian's narrative. Average service response time, reduced by 52% within 30 days of transfer. Implementation costs for new services down 31% due to streamlined processes. Client satisfaction scores up 24 points across the board on industry standard surveys. Revenue per client increased 18% on average within 60 days of switching providers. It wasn't about personal loyalty or vindictive client behavior. It was about measurable service quality improvements that proved relationship-based financial services delivered better outcomes than corporate process optimization. The morning of January 18th, I reviewed my presentation one final time in my Four Seasons suite. No dramatic reveals, no naming names unnecessarily. Just facts, outcomes, and professional analysis. Devastating through competence rather than emotion. As I walked into the grand ballroom at 9:00 a.m., I spotted Harrison immediately. He was huddled with two board members, Patricia Thornton and James Kellerman, near the coffee service area. His expression tightened when he saw me across the room. Tyler was there too, standing alone by the registration table, checking his phone constantly. He looked like he'd lost weight and hadn't been sleeping well. I nodded politely to Harrison and moved toward the panelist table. Found my nameplate between speakers from Wells Fargo and Bank of America. The event program listed 347 registered attendees. Half of Arizona's financial services industry was in that room. The panel discussion began with standard questions about market trends and digital disruption. When my turn came to address client loyalty strategies, I spoke directly about what clients truly valued in modern financial services. In an age where everything is automated and digitized, personal accountability has become the rarest commodity in financial services, I said, clicking to my first data slide. Companies often mistake client relationships for company assets. They aren't. They're trust agreements between individuals that require constant reinforcement through consistent performance. I presented my comparative data without mentioning Meridian by name, just case studies labeled as Company A and Company B with clear performance metrics. But everyone in that room with industry knowledge knew exactly what they were looking at. Case study analysis: 7 major accounts transferred from Company A to Company B in December 2023. Within 30 days, average response times improved 52%. Implementation costs decreased 31%. Client satisfaction increased 24 points on standardized industry surveys. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I saw Harrison lean forward in his seat, whispering to Patricia Thornton. The lesson isn't about retention packages or contractual obligations, I continued, advancing to my final analytical slide. It's about understanding that when you treat relationship managers as interchangeable corporate resources, clients will demonstrate exactly how wrong that assumption is. The market is brutally efficient at correcting strategic miscalculations. During the Q&A segment, a young woman in the third row, Jenny Martinez from Desert Financial, asked the question everyone was thinking but hadn't voiced. Mr. Morrison, isn't your recent move from Meridian Financial to Sterling & Associates, along with several major clients, exactly the scenario companies fear when they consider relationship manager autonomy? How do you address the argument that you've essentially held client relationships hostage? The room went completely silent. 347 people holding their breath, coffee cups frozen halfway to lips. I could feel Harrison's stare boring into me from row J. Tyler had stopped checking his phone entirely. That's a fair question, Jenny, I replied, my voice carrying clearly through the wireless microphone. But consider the alternative perspective. Those clients didn't follow me out of personal loyalty or emotional attachment. They followed because their service needs were consistently better met through my approach to relationship management, an approach my former employer decided was no longer aligned with their strategic direction. I paused, making brief but direct eye contact with Harrison across the ballroom. Every company has the right to change strategic direction. Every client has the right to decide if that new direction serves their business interests. When Company A terminated my employment to facilitate a strategic acquisition by Apollo Strategic Capital, yes, I'm aware of the acquisition attempt. They made a calculated business decision based on their priorities. Audible gasps throughout the audience. I'd named Apollo publicly. Harrison's face had gone completely white. The market responded with its own calculation. The acquiring company withdrew their $47.3 million offer within 8 days, citing relationship dependency risk. Company A's stock price declined 23% over the following month. This isn't personal revenge or vindictive behavior. It's simply market efficiency correcting a strategic miscalculation. The ballroom erupted in whispers and side conversations. Panel moderator David Chen from Phoenix Business Journal looked stunned, clearly hadn't expected this level of disclosure. After the panel ended, the audience didn't disperse to the networking reception. Instead, clusters of people approached me directly. 3 more former Meridian clients introduced themselves, expressing interest in Sterling's services. By the end of the conference day, Sterling had signed letters of intent with 5 new accounts representing $4.6 million in annual revenue. Harrison never approached me during the networking events. But as I was leaving the ballroom at 4:47 p.m., Tyler intercepted me near the exit doors. "Blake, can we talk for a minute?" "Nothing to discuss, Tyler. I didn't know about Apollo when I fired you." Harrison never told me the real reason for the termination. I thought it was actually about performance metrics and new business development. I stopped walking and looked at him directly for the first time in 6 weeks. He did look thinner, tired, like he hadn't been sleeping. "What's the real reason you're telling me this?" I asked. "Because I was terminated on January 12th. Same conference room, same table where I fired you. Harrison said I'd completed my primary objective but wasn't the right cultural fit for ongoing operations." I studied Tyler's expression. He seemed genuinely shaken, not manipulative. "They used me to fire you, then fired me for doing it," he continued. "Alicia Santos lasted until January 8th. Michelle was let go December 22nd. Half the staff is gone. There's almost no one left from your era." "I'm sorry that happened to you," I said. And I meant it. "Are you hiring at Sterling? I know I don't deserve consideration, but I need work, and I've learned some hard lessons about corporate loyalty. I'll put you in touch with Richard Sterling directly. But Tyler, no games this time. No disruption strategies or process optimization buzzwords. Just honest relationship building and client service." He nodded seriously. "Just honest work. I understand now." That evening, checking Phoenix Business Journal online, I saw the headline, "Meridian Financial announces major restructuring amid client defections." The article detailed Tyler's departure as VP of Sales, along with significant workforce reductions in client services and administrative functions. Their stock traded on the NASDAQ under ticker symbol MRDN had dropped 23% since December 12th, from $34.50 per share to $26.55. By February 15th, driving past Meridian's building on Central Avenue for a Sterling client meeting, I noticed something that confirmed the scope of their collapse. The large Meridian Financial illuminated sign on the 18th floor was completely gone. Just empty mounting brackets against the glass facade. Michelle texted me that same evening. "Building manager confirmed today." Meridian gave up floors 17 to 18, consolidated everything to floors 14 to 15. Lease reduction saves them $47,000 per month, but they had to pay $180,000 early termination penalty to the landlord. The physical manifestation of collapse was becoming visible throughout Phoenix's financial district. A company that had occupied the prestigious top 2 floors of Central Phoenix Tower for 4 years was now cramped into 2 lower floors. The executive conference room where Tyler had fired me, conference room B on the 18th floor, was now empty space being marketed to new tenants. 6 months after my termination on June 12, 2024, I stood in Sterling's largest conference room, surrounded by my team and the company's senior partners. On the wall-mounted display behind me, a single slide showed our first half results. $18.2 million in new business since January 1st, with 73% originating from former Meridian clients. Richard Sterling himself raised a glass of champagne. "To the best acquisition we've ever made without actually acquiring a company or paying a premium." Polite laughter rippled through the room. I smiled but didn't join the celebration. This wasn't about victory for me. It was about validation of a principle I'd spent 8 years proving. Authentic relationships follow competent people, not corporate strategies or brand loyalty. My phone buzzed with the news alert. Meridian Financial CEO Harrison Wade announces resignation amid continued revenue challenges and failed acquisition attempt. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without sharing the news. Some victories don't need an audience or commentary. Later that afternoon, my assistant handed me a FedEx envelope marked "Personal and Confidential." Inside was a handwritten note on Harrison Wade's personal letterhead. "Blake, you were right about everything. I put the transaction opportunity above client relationships and employee loyalty. Cost the company, cost 47 good people their jobs, cost me everything I'd built. If you're ever willing to have coffee, I'd appreciate the chance to apologize in person and ask your advice about rebuilding trust in this industry. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm asking anyway. Harrison." I folded the note and placed it in my jacket pocket. Maybe someday I'd take that meeting. Not yet, but eventually. That evening, driving north on the 101 toward Scottsdale, I passed the Central Phoenix Tower again. The building looked smaller in the twilight, less imposing than it had when I'd worked there. On the 14th floor, I could see a few lights still burning, probably maintenance crew or security making their rounds. The 17th and 18th floors where Meridian used to dominate the skyline were completely dark, vacant, waiting for new tenants. I didn't slow down or take photos. Just drove toward home, where Sarah was making dinner and Connor was probably practicing free throws in the driveway and Lily was working on algebra homework at the kitchen table. 1 year to the day after Tyler had terminated me. December 12th, 2024. I signed the final documents making me a full partner at Sterling and Associates. The partnership agreement was 47 pages of legal language, but the essential details were on page 23. 18.5% equity stake in the firm, plus performance bonuses tied to client retention and satisfaction scores. My client portfolio now represented $21.3 million in annual revenue. Sterling and Associates had grown 47% since my arrival in December 2023. We'd added 6 new employees, leased additional office space on the 23rd floor, and established a reputation as the premier relationship-based financial services firm in Arizona. I closed the leather portfolio containing my partnership documents and looked out my office window at the Phoenix skyline. Same buildings, same desert mountains in the distance, but everything else had fundamentally changed. Sarah entered with 2 cups of coffee. My old Wildcats mug had been replaced with a Sterling and Associates tumbler Connor had custom made for Father's Day with "World's Best Dad" engraved on the side. "Signed and official?" she asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. I nodded. "Signed and official. Full partner as of today." She studied my face with the expression that comes from 19 years of marriage and knowing someone's moods better than they know them themselves. "You don't look as happy as I expected." "Just thinking about what I'm building here. About doing it right this time, making sure the people who work with me are valued properly." That morning, I'd approved hiring 4 new account managers, all with the same profit-sharing structure I'd negotiated for myself. No one would build something valuable at Sterling only to have it stripped away for someone else's strategic transaction. That was my first major decision as a partner. My phone buzzed. Lucas Grayson texting about the partnership announcement. "Congratulations on the equity stake. Always knew you'd land where you belonged instead of just where you worked." "Thanks to clients like you who took the risk of following," I replied. "No," he corrected immediately. "Thanks to you being someone worth following. We just recognized the value and made a smart business decision." After we finished texting, I picked up the silver frame on my credenza. The photo inside showed our family at Connor's basketball championship game in March, the regional finals I'd missed 3 years running when I was at Meridian. This time I'd been there for the tip-off, watched him score 23 points and make the game-winning free throw, stayed for the team pizza celebration afterward. Lily's piano recital program was pinned to my office bulletin board. June 15th, 2024, Fur-Elise performed by Lily Morrison. I'd sat in the front row at the community center, put my phone on silent mode, and listened to every note she played. Afterwards, she'd run off stage and hugged me first, before Sarah or her grandparents. The cost of my previous success at Meridian had been too high. I'd calculated the wrong return on investment, measuring financial gains while ignoring family losses. I took out my calendar and did something I'd been postponing for 6 months. I scheduled lunch with Harrison Wade for next Tuesday, December 17th at the Henry in downtown Phoenix. Not to gloat or rehash past grievances, but because sometimes the final step in moving forward is releasing the weight of what happened before. Forgiveness wasn't about Harrison deserving it. It was about me not carrying the anger anymore. I shut down my computer, picked up my keys, and walked out to meet Sarah and the kids. We had dinner reservations at 7 p.m. at Connor's favorite steakhouse's choice for celebrating the partnership. Then Lily had violin lesson at 8:30, and I'd promised to drive her and wait during the full hour-long session. Some losses clear the way for better victories. Some fires burn away what needs to go. Walking out of Sterling and Associates as a partner instead of just an employee, heading home to a family dinner I wouldn't miss for any client emergency, I'd never been more certain of that truth. The market had been brutally efficient in correcting Meridian's strategic miscalculation. But more importantly, I'd learned to calculate success differently. Revenue per client mattered, but so did being present for Connor's free throws and Lily's piano recitals. The best portfolio included both. If you enjoyed this story about how real expertise in relationships beat corporate greed and strategic manipulation, hit the like button and let me know in the comments what you think about how Blake handled the situation. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this about justice, competence, and the power of authentic professional relationships. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile, every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here, maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.
Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to. There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger. Maybe I'll learn how to speak. But for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you.